Welcome to DemExit, the organization dedicated to exposing the corruption of the two-party system and dismantling it. I'm Anja, and today we're going to be looking at some articles that highlight the lies of the Biden campaign. Now, it's not really surprising that the Biden campaign is lying. The closer and closer we get to election day, we're going to be seeing a lot more of the true colors of both campaigns. I don't really think that Trump's true colors are going to change much because he embraces his true colors a little bit too much, way too much. But for Biden's campaign in particular, a normal campaign, as the closer we get to election, we're going to see the differences from what they're saying on cable news. We're going to have leaks from their backdoor deals. We're going to be seeing a lot more of what their donors are, what their actual teams are going to be, and we're going to be getting a lot more of the truth of what those administrations would really look like. Before we get started, I just want to say that if you are confused about what DemExit is, please go to the video right here, and that video is the initial round one video of explaining this organization. Also, before we get into this, yes, I know that Trump lies all the time. Just to mitigate, like, why aren't I making a Trump lies video? It's because everyone knows how much he lies. And the only people who think he is honest are the ones who are so down the rabbit hole. So we'll be talking about Joe Biden. I mean, there will be videos, plenty of videos about Trump, because I want to look at the hypocrisy of both sides. But in this video, we're looking at Joe Biden. This video is not about Trump. Okay? So let's get it. So we're going to be starting with this article from the Washington Post that reads, Biden's flexibility on policy could mean fierce fights if he wins. First of all, before we even get into the article, I think it's so amusing that they called Biden's like shiftiness and like constant rollbacks and changes on policy positions his flexibility on it, because he's flexible about it, because the Biden campaign has no fucking clue who they actually are. They just are, day by day, whatever way they think the wind is blowing, they shift gears, change their sails, which is not the way to win an election. And it also just signals that there's going to be a lot of flexibility, that signals that there's going to be a lot of examples of his flexibility on policy, which would be his campaign's lies and then rollbacks. So, when Joe Biden released his economic recommendations 2 months ago, they included a few ideas that worried some powerful bankers, allowing banking at the post office, for example, and having the Federal Reserve guarantee all Americans a bank account. So, of course, the bankers were upset, and but this would be what Joe Biden released to the public. He released to the public that he would allow banking at the post office, and the Federal Reserve guaranteeing all Americans a bank account. So then we have what's actually happening in closed doors behind that. But in private calls with Wall Street leaders, the Biden campaign made it clear those proposals would not be central to Biden's agenda. And basically saying not central to Biden's agenda is like essentially saying that it's not going to happen. So this quote here is from a banker who was, in one of those private calls and leaked this. He said that they basically said, listen, this is just an exercise to keep the Warren people happy and don't read too much into it. So again, not central to Biden's agenda, behind closed doors, don't read too much into it. It's not actually going to happen. It's like a fluff. It's a sparkly thing to dangle in front of the press and the masses. And so that investment banker was referring to the liberal supporters of Senator Elizabeth Warren, when he was probably really referring, and that's sad, because that's not even then referring to the leftists of Bernie Sanders. The banker spoke on the condition of he needed to be anonymous, basically, because that's going to be something that could get him in a lot of trouble. But that in of itself is just immediately showing the degradation of this, like, frontal, like, shininess to the campaign, and showing immediately getting into what's actually happening behind closed doors, these handshake deals. The powerful bankers got upset, and Biden's campaign immediately told them not to worry. It was just an exercise to keep the left-leaning people happy, which is absolutely abhorrent. So moving on. This reluctance to be pinned down on any policy details is central to Joe Biden's campaign, which is focused on a pledge to restore the soul of the nation, rather than any particular legislative holy grail. While Biden has issued a raft of proposals, he's often taken an all things to all people approach, sometimes making strong public declarations while relying on aides to soothe critics behind the scenes. Everything about that paragraph is so wrong. First of all, this reluctance to be pinned down on policy details is central to Biden's campaign. Well, what a fucking joke. Like, the whole point of a campaign is to be set in policy. And basically, that's like, like all of a sudden, if Trump decides that he's a leftist and doing leftist policies, is he gonna, like, just not be Trump and switch to fascism? Like, Trump's brand of fascism, oh my god, fascism, that's just, and then this whole pledge to restore the soul of the nation is supposed to have what the campaign calls a calming effect, but I don't think that's calming at all. There's no, like, at least with Trump we know what we're getting, but like with Biden it's just like, we supposed, okay. Like, what are they doing? And while he has issued a raft of proposals, he's often taken an all things to all people approach. Which means but they're basically saying every single one of Biden's proposals is up in air. It doesn't mean jack shit because he is not going to be pinned down on any policy. So if you go to Joe Biden's page and look at all of his policy decisions, it means nothing, essentially. And then, while he sometimes makes strong public declarations, like, I don't know, for example, I guess whenever he said those things about, up here, the economic recommendations, he stirred the pot a little bit, and then his aides had to soothe critics, Wall Street, the bankers, behind the scenes, which is, again, that whole shiny, pretty, amazing, like, show face to the public, and then behind closed doors be like, yeah, we're not doing fucking any of that. We completely support you, not the people. That strategy, reflecting a decades-long career in which Biden has seen himself more as the mediator than an ideologue, has helped him unify the party's liberal and moderate wings behind the shared goal of defeating President Trump. I strongly disagree with that sentiment. I mean, the moderate people, so centrist Republicans, and then liberals, so moderate Republicans, basically, like, that are the people that they're referring to, neoliberals and centrist Republicans. And if he's unified anyone, I mean, he hasn't really unified anyone on the left, but I guess that's why they use the word liberal. So who did he really unify? He unified Wall Street because, I mean, Wall Street was all about Trump in the beginning, but hasn't been that great for Wall Street since. So Biden is coming in strong, knowing where the actual powers that be lie in this country, and appeasing Wall Street in the light and behind the scenes as well, much more behind the scenes. But it is also laying the groundwork for bitter internal battles. No shit, dude. Should Biden win the presidency on topics from race to climate to trade, while Wall Street leaders plan to have their way with the president, many expect to be unusually susceptible to outside pressure, except from the left. So basically, yeah, I mean, they said in the beginning he has a decades-long career in which Biden has seen himself more as a mediator, which basically is saying he's seen himself more as a bitch willing to not hold on to his own morals. And so, like, yeah, he's going to be unusually susceptible. Like, he all he's going to want to do is be the likable president, like, do what everyone he thinks likes. And it's so at the point where, like, leftists aren't even considered. Like, obviously it's going to be corporate donors, Wall Street, stuff like that. That's the outside pressures, the lobbyists, that he's actually big pharma that he's conceding to. His gut reaction is to legislate. He's been a legislator, said Leon Panetta, who worked with Biden as Barack Obama's defense secretary. He's going to try to build or test bipartisan to see if he can rebuild that in Congress and see whether that takes him anywhere. No, it won't. He added, a lot of presidents walk into that office with all kinds of ideas about great things they are going to accomplish, only to run into the wall of reality. Well, all I can say about that comment is he's already been the vice president of the United States. He should know what the wall of reality is. We shouldn't have to be seeing this from... And he's also the vice president that led to Trump. So, I mean, he's going to build bipartisanship? Look at where we were at the end of the Obama administration, and look at where we are now. Like, after having Trump, after Obama, like, why didn't Biden build this bipartisanship during the 8 years he was vice president? Because it's not possible in the two-party system. They know it's not possible. It's an illusion of building bipartisanship in the two-party system because it's really just one party sucking corporate dick. And one does it nicely and one does it sloppily. That's basically all it is. The Biden campaign said the economic recommendations were produced jointly by supporters of Biden and Senator Bernie Sanders and were never intended as official policy. The Biden-Sanders task force made recommendations to Vice President Biden and to the Democratic Platform Drafting Committee, said the campaign spokesman T.J. Ducklow. That is a really amusing last name. This anonymous source appears to be confused and uninformed about this basic distinction. So basically, they're saying, the Biden campaign is saying, like, that it's completely understandable that they're actually rolling these things back, and said this to Wall Street officials, because that Bernie Sanders Biden joint task force that they hyped the fuck out of for leftists was never intended to be official policy. So again, rollback after rollback after rollback. I mean, it's not even like a full month after the DNC, and we're seeing this shit where, like, every single progressive thing that he said he was going to do is disappearing. It's absolutely disappearing. And I think it's funny that they're saying this anonymous source appears to be confused and uninformed about this very basic distinction. The very basic distinction that you guys said it was going to be your policy, and now you're saying that, no, that wasn't meant to be official policy. We were just putting that out there for shits and giggles. Like, what the hell? What, like, that's just not it. Not it.